Okay, so last section for this week, or 5.2, we're just going to look at the second part. So now, situation 1. Okay, so we're just asking you guys about what we did on Tuesday. When you solved situation 1, like the systems we did in the warm-up, what did you always have in terms of the letters? One of the letters was always what? Yep.
X or Y?
Well, the letters are usually X and Y. Unless you do a word problem, you might use different letters. But what about one of the letters? It was isolated, right? It was always by itself. So you either had X equals or Y equals. You didn't have to do anything to rearrange.
No, like the one we just did, I think it was like number 3 in the warm-up. Y was isolated in both equations. So you may get one like that too.
All right, so something was already by itself. Well, we're going to look at a second situation today. So, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen with the ones we solved today? With what? With the letters.
So the ones we did on Tuesday didn't have to rearrange at all. What about the ones? What do you think about the ones we're going to do today? Chris?
Are we going to rearrange?
Yes.
Yes.
So the ones we do today, you're going to have to get X or Y by itself. Chances are, X or Y will already be alone, meaning there'll be nothing attached to it. So you'll see like a single X or a single Y, but it won't be isolated, meaning it won't be by itself on the left-hand side of the equal sign.
Now, Mr. Roy is going to go through it when he looks at the steps with you, but you're going to have options, right?
Yeah.
You can choose whether to get X alone or Y alone. I know in the warm-up we wrote directions that told you which one to do. Well, you're going to have a choice, and we're going to tell you how to make the easiest choice, right? So situation 2, you're going to have to rearrange.
Then you guys have the 2 bullets there on the top, so that's going to be these next 2 things.
Yeah, so these are the reminders where you get those bullets.
This stuff you have to do before you're able to substitute.
Right, so we'll kind of tell you what a step is, and then we'll actually show you in an equation what it would look like. So here it says you have an X on the same side as a Y by itself, a single Y. You've got an X and a Y on the same side, and the Y is by itself here. There's no number in front of it. The way you handle this situation, you do the opposite operation to X. So when we say opposite operation, what does that mean? Like if it was a positive, what's the opposite operation?
Like in this case, right? Say again, Yusuf?
So if you had a positive, what would be the opposite operation?
Negative.
Negative, subtraction. What if you had a negative number? What's the opposite operation? Positive, addition, right? So you do the opposite operation to X, and we put it on the other side. So look at this one. If you wanted to get Y by itself, this is what the problem is. It's right here. That's what's preventing Y from being by itself. What I just circled, is that a negative or a positive? Jacob? Is that a negative or a positive? Yeah, it's a negative, right? It's got the little minus in front. So what did we just say the
What should
opposite?
Mr. Hager do, Jacob, to get Y isolated if the 5X is negative?
What's the opposite?
What should I do to move it?
Make it a positive?
Make it a positive, right? So I'm going to do what? Plus?
Plus 5 on each side?
Yeah,
Plus-
plus 5X on both sides.
Plus 5x, yep. Plus 5x. Plus 5x. Elliot, what's negative 5x plus 5x?
X.
You owe someone $5 and you pay them $5.
0.
You owe them nothing, right? This cancels out.
Basically just
0.
Yeah.
Bethany, what's on the left-hand side now? Left. Left-hand side. No, left side. You're giving me the right. The Y.
Yeah.
So on the left-hand side, all you have is Y. On the right, Brady, what's on the right?
Where? 26.
Yeah. else? Look underneath. Underneath 26.
Oh yeah, 5x.
Positive or negative?
Now, if this was a substitution problem, now we're ready to go. We've got a letter by itself, and we can fill that letter in. We don't have to worry about really y equals mx plus b. All right? If you're looking at that and you're like, well, don't we normally write like y equals 5x plus 26? You could, but that's extra work. You don't have to do that here. You can just leave it as 26 plus 5x, because we're not drawing it. Right? We're going to plug that in somewhere else. We're not actually going to plug that in, but in a real problem, you would. All right, so this is kind of the same thing, except it's a different letter that's already has a 1 next to it. So it says you've got a y and an x on the same side, but you just have a single x instead of a single y. It's like, yeah, it's just getting a different letter by itself.
Okay.
So when you're setting a system up for substitution, you always want to look for the letter that's by itself, right? Well, not by itself, but the letter that doesn't have any number in front of it except a 1. Okay? That's the easiest letter to get by itself. Could you get the y by itself here? Yes, but we did that in the warm-up, and you saw what happened. We had all those fractions when we had to divide by 4. That's a little messier. Okay, so you do the opposite operation to the y and put it after the equal sign. All right, so on the left-hand side, what's preventing the x from being by itself? What's there that we don't want? Gigi? The negative 4y. So what's the opposite operation of negative 4y? Plus 4y, yep. Plus 4y, plus 4y. Right, so Ellie, what's negative 4y plus 4y?
0.
0, good. Cancels out, it's gone. Chris, what's on the left-hand side now?
X. Okay.
Yes. X equals, and Matt, what do I have on the right?
So 4y minus 2.
Yeah, you could do 4y, that's fine.
Put the number, the letter first.
Could he have said this? Negative 2 plus 4y?
Yes.
Yep, that's the same thing. Negative with the 2, negative with the 2. Positive with the 4, positive with the 4. He could have done it either way, and you're right. Yep. In fact, if you were kind of doing like y equals mx plus b, that's kind of more like that, where you put the letter with the number first, and then the number without the letter second. But yep, that's good. Okay. Any questions on that?
Guys, we'll go through those. In the steps are going to be. You'll see, and I'll mention it during the when I go through these steps. But they're going to be similar to what we did on Tuesday. Really, the only new piece is going to be step 1. But I figured it'd still be good to kind of go over those steps. Again. So first thing, I know it's kind of long. This will be the longest one. So like we said, you look at it, and now you're saying when you look at the system, neither equation has a variable that's isolated. So you don't have a y equals something or an x equals something. So that's when you have situation 2. That means you're going to have to rearrange. All right? So you're going to choose the equation to rearrange that already has a single variable, an x or a y, with no number attached. All right? Now, you may run into a situation where in both equations, they both have a single variable. So if they both have a single variable, choose the equation with the positive single variable. Then rearrange the equation using the reminders. So like the stuff we just talked about in the 2 things we did before that, we had to get like, I think it said like x on the same side with a single y, or y on the same side with a single x. All right? like what I'm talking about here, if they both have a single variable, like x, 2x minus y equals 4, 3x plus y equals 5. They both have a single variable. All right? So if you run into a situation, into a system like that, you wanna, my suggestion would be I would rearrange the one that has the positive single variable. All right? I would minus 3x. You don't have to write this, I'm just showing you guys so you understand what this means. And it'd be y equals negative 3x, oops, x minus 5. All right, if I decided to do the top one, when I rearrange the stuff, I get negative y equals negative 2x plus 4. Y is not by itself. It still has a negative 1 attached. So I have to divide everything by negative 1. So that's why I'm saying, if they both have a single variable, move the one that has the positive single variable. Because then you can avoid having to divide by negative 1 at the end. Now, if it was, say this was 2y, then yes, I would rearrange the top one because it'll be a little bit, you're still going to have to divide, but you don't have to divide by a negative 1. So it's going to actually just switch your sides. All right? So choose the equation. It's again, like I'm saying, you're looking at your system. Neither equation has x equals or y equals. So now you have to rearrange some stuff. So that's what we'll talk about situation 2 today. Try to find the one that has the positive single variable. If you don't have that, then we'll have to just move something that has a negative attached. And that's okay. All right? So, just like we did yesterday, we'll kind of go through this example. We'll kind of go through the steps, and then we'll do an example that shows, we'll do an example for each step so you'll be able to see it. So we got 2x plus y equals, plus 3y equals 4. Y plus 3x equals 6. So here, we want to choose the equation, either top or bottom, and then rearrange. So we want to try to pick an equation that has what in it? Single variable. What type of a single variable? Positive. Positive. My top one, right? I got a number attached to x, I got a number attached to y. There's nothing that meets that criteria of a positive single variable. All right? Nathan, look at the bottom one. Do we have a positive single variable in the bottom one?
Yeah,
what is it?
y.
The y, right? There's nothing to the left of it, so we know that it's positive. All right? So, this is the equation that we're going to rearrange. What do we need to do? Someone tell me raising their hand. What do we need to do to rearrange this equation to get y by itself so we can substitute? Use it? Minus 3x on both sides, right? So I'm going to minus 3x, minus 3x. My new equation, rearranged, is going to be what? Someone tell me raising their hand. Dylan, what do you think? What's my new equation going to be with y by itself? Yeah? So what do I have on this side? 6. Keep going. Yeah, that's it. You got it, Dylan. That's right. Again, so once I rearrange this, I'm not worried about this anymore. Once I rearrange it, it's gone. I'm going to use this now. So that equation that I rearranged, I'm not worried about that anymore. All right? It's the same equation, it's just rearranged. All right? And then it says, and put your parentheses. And let me just check step 2 here. Okay. So now, we want to put parentheses around. Don't worry about the top equation right now. What am I going to put parentheses around when I just rearrange? What should I put parentheses around? Someone tell me. Gigi?
6 minus 3x.
The 6 minus 3x. So that's the new step today. Rearranging. getting one of the variables by itself. Yes, Tuesday, you already had one of the equations with x or y by itself. Today you don't. All right? So that's this step right here, having to rearrange it. That's the only thing that's new. All right? So let's go down. Like we said, the rest of the steps are going to be the same. So now, I'm going to take my 2x plus 3y equals 4. And I'm going to take my y equals 6 minus 3x. All I did was took this step and brought it down here. That way, we'll have written the written step what to do. And you'll also have an example of that step happening in an example. So put parentheses around the isolated variable in the other equation and plug in the information that already has parentheses. So this is stuff that we did on Tuesday. Let's go a little bit more. So this is what we did on Tuesday at this step. So I already have parentheses around the 6 minus 3x. I already have parentheses around what I isolated. But now it says to put parentheses around the isolated variable in the. So I want to put, what I mean is put parentheses around this variable in the other equation. So in the other equation, the top one, what am I putting parentheses around? What letter? Someone tell me raising their hand. Gigi? Why? Because why? Again, think of it like this. I'm plugging in this information for this letter in the other equation. So I'm going to put parentheses around y. What I like to do is cross out, kind of put a little cross out through the y. That way I know it's gone. I'm not doing anything else for that. All right? I'm going to, if you want to, you can draw an arrow to show what you're plugging in for y now. So that top equation with the new information plugged in from the bottom equation is going to be written out like what? What am I going to write? Melanie, what do you think? To write that out with this information plugged in, what's the top equation going to say?
2x plus 3 times 6 minus 3x.
Equals. So that is my equation with the information plugged in. So that's step 2. Find the variable that's isolated here in the other equation and put parentheses around it. At this point, we're just going to plug it in. Let's go down to step 3. We're going to solve the equation. So I'm going to take this information and bring it down here. 2x plus 3, parentheses 6 minus 3x, like Melanie just told us, equals 4. So now I'm at the point where at this point, I'm going to solve for one of the variables. I know I set it up right because it says should only have one letter in it. It does. It only has an x. So when I solve this equation, what variable am I going to solve for, Paige? What's the only variable that's in that equation? The one I just wrote for step 3. X. So I'll have solve for x. Does anybody remember what the steps were? What's the first thing I have to do? Savannah? Distribute. So I'm going to write the steps first, and then we'll go through and actually do them. So I distribute first. These steps are the same as the stuff we did on Tuesday. Distribute first. What's the next thing? Gigi. Combine like terms. I'm just going to put CLT because I'm lazy. I don't want to write the whole thing out. I know, man. That's the way it is. Don't have to play. I hate the game. All right. After combine like terms, what I want to do? I want to get someone besides Gigi. Thank you, Gigi. You're awesome. What do you think, Laurel? Once I've combined like terms, what do I want to do? Get the answer. I want to get the variable by itself. That means there'll be a letter and there'll be a number on the same side. I want to move the number to get the variable by itself. Last step is always what? What's the last step?
To like combine like
No.
I already did that.
So I'm gonna
Subtract, like,
no. I'm gonna have. Let's say I might have like 12x equals 24. What's that last step?
Divide.
Divide.
Or
Yeah.
divide by answer.
Or just divide. All right. So those are my steps: distribute, combine like terms, get the variable by itself, and divide. So I'm gonna distribute first. What number, Joe, am I distributing? Positive or negative? Positive. I'm gonna distribute the positive 3 into what numbers? 6 and negative 3. When I do that, Joe, what do I get? Positive or negative? Positive 18 and negative 9x. Everything else is gonna come down. So I just did a distribute part. Ryan, what part am I at now? What step am I on? I just distributed? What am I going to do now? I just distributed, Ryan. Look at Ryan. I just distributed. What's my like term? 2x and negative 9x. When I do that, I'm going to get negative 7x plus 18 equals 4. Now I want to get the variable by itself. What do I have to do that, Ellie?
Subtract 18.
Subtract 18, very good. I'm going to bring down my negative 7x. Is my answer here going to be negative or positive? 4 minus 18.
Negative.
Negative what number?
14.
Well done. Last step is what, Yusuf?
Divide.
By what number?
Negative.
Awesome. Yusuf, negative divided by a negative? Huh? Positive. Positive what? 2. Nice job. X equals 2. So now I've solved for one of the variables. Right? So like Mr. Hager said, we've done probably the hardest part. We've got it isolated, we've plugged in, we've solved. And remember, these steps, 90% of the time, unless like the one we did in the warm-up where y was by itself in both equations, that's going to kind of change these steps. But most of the stuff we do for substitution, these are going to be the steps. Distribute, combine like terms, get the variable by itself, and divide. So that's step 3, probably the hardest part. I'll leave it up to you guys and still see. Now, almost done, Yusuf. I'm sorry, man. It's my Valentine's Day gift to you.
Okay.
You're welcome. Plug the number you solve for into the other equation. Very important. When it's situation 2 and you have to rearrange, you want to plug it back into the one you rearranged. Reason being, x or y is already by itself. You won't have to move anything around. You can just do the arithmetic and you'll get your answer. If you plug it into the other equation, where the variable is not isolated, then you're going to have to move some stuff around. It's going to be a little bit more work. That's why we say it to plug it into the one you already rearranged at the beginning. For x or y, depending on what letter you solve for first. Again, like we said Tuesday, it all depends on what you have, what the setup is. In this equation, we ended up solving for x first. You might get an equation where you solve for y first. It's not wrong. It all depends on how the equation's set up. It all depends on what you get, or how the system's set up. So, I'm going to scroll back up just for a second. Which equation do I want to plug into? The top one or the bottom one? The 2x plus 3y equals 4 or the y equals 6 minus 3x? Ellie?
Top one?
No.
The bottom?
We want to plug it into the one that's already rearranged. Alright? So the bottom one, that's the one we rearranged. That's the one that's got the variable by itself. The y equals 6 minus 3x. So I'm going to go back down here. Y equals 6 minus 3x. And you always want to plug back into, when you get your answer, you always want to plug that number back into the equation that already has a variable isolated. Then you won't have to move anything around. Alright? So, Donovan, what number am I gonna be plugging in for what letter? 2 for what letter? X. So my equation is gonna read like what? Y equals
6 negative 4 parentheses 2.
I'm just taking this and plugging in for X. Y equals 6. What's negative 3 times 2? Ellie? Negative 6. Then 6 minus 6 is 0. Alright? And then, like we talked about earlier in the week, if it's a multiple choice, right, your answers are going to be written as a coordinate. If it's a short answer question where there's no choices and you have to write down the answer, it'll be like this. X equals blank, Y equals blank. So if I'm doing it like this, X equals 2, Y equals 0. If I'm doing it as a coordinate, it'll be, 2, comma, 0. So you got to be familiar with both ways. Like I said, if it's short answer where there's no multiple choice, and you're going to figure it out on your own, then it'll be like this. If it's a multiple choice, answers will show up like that. Yusuf, question?
We have to, on the test, is it going to be already X for us, or do we have to write it?
Yeah, it'll be like this.
Like a blank?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be X equals Y equals. You don't have to, I know what you're saying. You don't have to write it yourself. There'll be a spot to write it in.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, like I said, the only step that's new today is being able to isolate the variable. Other than that, all the other steps are the same. Am I good to move on?
Yes.
Yes.
Turn the page.
Turn the page. All right. So this one, look at it. Do I have X or Y meaning X or Y by itself on the left-hand side of the equal sign in either equation? I don't, right? I have nothing like that. So step 1 told us to look for an equation that has a single variable. And hopefully that single variable is positive. So Gary, looking at this, which equation has a single variable, all right, that's positive? The top or the bottom?
The top.
The top. So I'm going to choose the top. What variable is alone in the top?
X.
X, right? So what do I have to do, Garrett, to get X isolated, meaning nothing else around it? I want to get that X by itself. I want nothing else on that side of the equal sign with it. So what do I have to get rid of? What's on that side with it?
2y.
So what do I do?
Minus.
Minus 2y. Minus 2y. So it'll be X equals what, Garrett? I don't care how you write it. You can put number first, you can put letter first. Doesn't matter. Huh?
Negative 9.
Negative. No, you can't combine them because that doesn't have a y.
Oh, negative 2.
Negative 2y, yep. What's the rest of it? We use that, okay. Minus 7. Remember, yeah, we can't, if this had a y, yes, we could combine it, but it doesn't. All we're doing is we want to move that y to get x by itself so we can substitute, right? Once I've done this, once I've moved everything around, I don't care about that anymore. I got it the way I want. I cross it out. That way, when I get to the last step, and I have to substitute x or y, whatever I solve for first, I don't try to plug it back into this. I'm going to plug it back into this. So when I come back, once I solve for my first variable, I'm going to come back and plug into that equation. All right? I'll take my bottom one. 5x plus 3y equals 7. I got to put parentheses now, right? Catherine, what am I putting parentheses around? Perfect, right? Because the x is isolated, right? Brady, in the other equation, What am I putting parentheses around?
Okay.
Alright, which variable in the top, which variable is isolated, meaning by itself? X. So what do you think I should put parentheses around in the other equation? X. Where's X?
5.
X to the 5, right? I'm going to put parentheses. What I like to do is, you don't have to, I like to cross it out. That way I know there's going to be no X there. Now I'm ready to substitute.
That's right.
Can someone tell me, so I'm substituting the top into the bottom. What am I going to write for my bottom equation now with the information plugged in? Yusuf? 5.
And then parentheses.
Yeah.
Negative 2y.
Yeah.
Minus 7.
Excellent.
Close parentheses.
Yeah.
Plus 3y equals 7.
Perfect. We took the top that we rearranged. We just didn't do it for the fun of it. We did it so we could plug it in. Here's the stuff that was already there. Don't forget, the stuff at the end, you got to make sure you plug that in as well. This doesn't disappear. All right? Jake, what's my first step now to solve? I have parentheses there, right? So what do I have to do? It starts with a D. Close. Distribute, right? What math operation do I do when I distribute, Jake? Add, subtract, multiply, or divide? Good man, I multiply, right? What number am I multiplying? What number's on the outside of the parentheses? Here's my parentheses. What number's on the outside? To the left of it. On this side. Oh, 5. 5's on the outside, right? So that's what I'm going to distribute in. When I distribute, what do I get? Someone tell me. Yusuf? Negative 10y. And then 5 times negative 7 is negative 35. Bring this stuff down. What do I do now? Combine like terms. Alex, what are my like terms?
Negative 10y and 3y.
Negative 10y and 3y. That's going to give me negative 7y minus 35 equals 7. Natasha, what now? I want to solve for y, right? But I can't solve for y yet because why? What do I do with it? Add 35. Good. Negative 7y equals, this is going to end up being 42.
That's perfect.
And then you just divide it by 7.
Divide by negative 7.
And you get 6. Right?
Close. Almost.
Negative 6.
Negative 6.
Correction.
Y equals negative 6. Am I done?
No.
Why? Why am I not done? That's it. Remember, we're doing systems, right? So we need 2 answers. We need y and x. We got y. Go back to the top, right? Which equation do I want to plug into? The top or the bottom? Which equation did I rearrange? Ellie?
Top.
The top, right? What letter am I plugging in for?
Y.
Y. Go all the way up. Put an arrow at y. My new equation will be x equals negative 2.
Parentheses.
Negative
Negative 6.
6 minus 7. X equals negative times a negative. Positive. 12 minus 7. X equals 5. 2 ways to write it, correct? Somebody give me one way. Ellie?
5 comma negative 6.
5 comma negative 6.
Or negative 6.
Hold on. Somebody else fill in the blanks for me.
5.
X equals what, Donovan? Y equals?
Negative 6.
Either way, multiple choice, short answer. And like Yusuf asked, it will say X equals Y equals, you just have to plug it in.
If you still have to write it down, would it even matter how you put it? It wouldn't matter.
Make sure you plug in the right number for the right letter.
Yeah, I know that. But
Like, don't put negative 6 for X, it'd be wrong.
no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I know that.
But that one's done.
Yes.
This one, all right? I'm gonna ask you to, because I'm gonna have you rearrange it before we start. I'm just gonna ask you, because now, again, when X or Y is not isolated, what are we looking for? Someone tell me raising their hand. Joe? A positive one, right?
Yeah.
And because in this case, we have a single in both, but we want to make sure we pick the positive one that we don't have to divide at the end. So Joe just told us we're going to rearrange the bottom one. So why don't people go ahead right now, rearrange the bottom one, and plug it in. All right? Because you're going to end up getting Y by itself. So it's going to be plugged in up here. All right?
Do you want?
I have to. I'm just going over the end of it. So tonight, I'll give you the test review in a second. Reference sheets on Google Classroom. You do not have to fill in all the boxes. The reference sheet is for you, not for us. We're not checking it. All right? On the reference sheet, it will say, if you had trouble with test review number 4, that means question number 4 off the test review. Chances are, you have a hard time with a question like that tomorrow on a test. It tells you the example to look up in your notes. Look up that example, fill in that box. It'll help you to do that problem, and also a problem that'll be like it tomorrow on the test. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So again, fill in on the reference sheet the stuff you have a hard time doing. If you want to fill in every box, that's entirely up to you. All right? My suggestion would be make sure you write down all the steps too, like distribute, combine like terms, get variable by itself, divide. I would do that. All right?